Hey everyone, my name is Jazz, and for today's video, you're going to be an active student learning how to rotate. Rotating is probably one of the most difficult skills to learn in competitive Fortnite, so let's improve that skill today with some examples from pros. Enjoy. For the first rotation, we'll be looking at Stretch, Saf, and Kanata. They pulled a max distance first moving zone, and here's what they know. They have 3 launch pads, and the entire right side is empty. What do? They walk into zone using the entire empty right side. They launch pad onto height. They launch pad right under height. Or finally, they launch pad as deep towards the next zone as possible. Now let's take a look at what actually happened. So at first, they were planning to launch as close towards the next zone as possible. However, they noticed that there's kind of this brick path under height, and you might think to yourself, why would you put yourself second height? And they'll show you why. So they land. Keep in mind they have 3 launch pads, which is a lot, obviously. So the number one reason you want to be directly under height is to try to take it from height, try to contest it. So what they do is they set up here and they look if they can triple beam someone, or if they can shoot someone down, or if they can basically make a play for high ground. They don't get any damage off, or they don't get any kind of reason to build fight height, and they don't want to take any extra risks, right? So now they use a second launch pad to just low pad as deep into next zone as possible. Did you get it right? I mean, it was maybe a hard one, but the reason this was so good is they have 3 launch pads, right? So they get the best of both worlds. They can try to go for height without taking any risks, right? They only would go for high ground if they get a beam or if they get a reason to go for high ground. They don't just pad on top of height. Don't be a psycho. And it didn't work out, and that's fine because they have another 2 launch pads, and they just use one here to get themselves deep into zone, and they get a good position here. So hopefully this makes sense, and you can use this in your own game. For the second rotation, we'll be looking at Niver's team, who actually got first place in the first Cash Cup. They need to move to the 5th zone, and this is what they know. They have 2 launch pads, a car, and they could use some more damage for Storm Surge. They have 230, but in these games 230 might not be enough. And finally, this is what their surrounding looks like. What do? They walk into zone. They use the car and drive into zone. They launch pad straight away and land here. Or finally, they wait till zone catches up with them and then they launch pad. Now let's see what they do. They decide to simply walk into zone. Now, you might be wondering, why do they just walk into zone? Like, isn't it scary? They have 2 launch pads. Well, the number one reason is, first of all, they're close, right? They don't have to walk very far. Number 2, the main threat they have, which would be this team, has a whole lot of options to shoot at. So they're probably going to shoot at someone either driving, because that's just free damage, or people padding, because again, free damage. they're not going to be worried too much about the team that's kind of just walking in and then building with hard mats, because why would you start shooting a metal wall when you can shoot at people that are just gliding in later? This rotation ended up actually being really useful as well for their Storm Surge, because what they did from here is they basically just waited, looked back, as you can see, and try to hold people that are coming in later. And you'll see what happens. Tons of people end up here, and they're already established. They've fully built metal, so anyone that comes here, they're going to be weaker than them. They're going to be more vulnerable. And if you don't know much about zones, the edge of 5th zone generally gets pretty contested because everyone just tries to get in, and they don't care too much about how deep if they don't have the option. Like, preferably you want to end up here, right, if you're padding, because this is where zone expands out to, so this is going to be dead side. However, some people don't have that option. Like, they either have to walk in or they glide in from far away, so they can't glide all the way to there. So they actually end up getting a lot of damage, first of all, and they even get, I think, like 2 kills just by spraying at all these guys that are fighting on edge. So look at them, they're fully established, they have no fear basically. I think they kill this guy. And they're basically fully protected on all sides. Like, they get sprayed a little bit, but that's not a big deal. And they got a kill and loads of damage. For the third rotation, we'll be taking a look at Hoofishy, Kaz, and Aspect. They pulled a max distance 5th zone, and this is what they know. They have 2 launch pads, and there's a team in front of them. What do? They wait till the last second, and then they use one of their launch pads. They wait for the team in front of them to move, and then they follow them. Or finally, they launch pad straight away. Now, let's take a look at what actually happened. So as you can see, they wait for this other team to move, and they start shooting him. And he just follows. So the reason they don't use a launch pad on this max distance 5th zone, which probably most of you would use it on, is because, number one, there's a ton of old builds. So if you see, there's so much wood, and he even forced the team in front of them to build a bit more. So there's already some wood built earlier, but then they basically added onto that by shooting. And this led to basically them having a fairly free rotation. There's basically no one, if you can see here, there's basically no one that's going to shoot at them here. They have tons of old builds, they have a hill, the team in front of them has already moved, so it's a fairly free rotation. So you see they switch to hard mats slightly before they're actually in. They don't wait for the last second to use hard mats, they wait until basically they're seen. So here, right, no one sees them really, and then once, wow, I'm out in the open, this team can shoot at me, that team can shoot at me, maybe a team over here on the right. That's when they switch to hards, and they basically just tarp into zone, which, I mean, it's a fairly good investment. It's like almost no hard mats compared to using a launch pad. Alright guys, that was the final example. Did you do well? Let me know in the comments below, and don't lie, I see you. Did you like this kind of video? If that's the case, if this is useful for your improvement, let me know, and I'll be sure to make more of these. And I'll see you next week.